The Rise of Skywalker's Monday box office figures have just been announced, and they are a massive $29.2 million. Up until this point, The Rise of Skywalker has been getting beaten by The Last Jedi in every single day by around about 20%, but this is the first sign of a reversal. Rise of Skywalker has outperformed The Last Jedi's first Monday by 30%. So $21.5 million for The Last Jedi, $29.2 million here just announced for The Rise of Skywalker's Monday. This brings the total of The Rise of Skywalker to $206,500,000, and that compares to $241 million for The Last Jedi at the same point in time. So it's still about $35 million behind. It's a very large amount of money, but again, it's sort of reversing the trend that we've seen so far. Now, on Tuesday, it will probably out-earn what The Last Jedi got again. There's no reason to think that that won't happen. And then on Wednesday, we have Christmas Day. And it's quite difficult to predict exactly what will happen there, but usually it's quite a large increase over what it will normally be. And then on the Thursday this week, the day after Christmas, that will probably also be a much bigger result than what we would normally get on a Thursday. On this chart here, we've got 4 films' total box office earnings for the first week. At the top in blue, we have The Force Awakens. The red line there is Last Jedi. The green line is a projected possible line for The Rise of Skywalker. And the purple line is what Rogue One got at the end of its first week. If you saw my last video, you would have seen that the green line was very close to the purple line. It looked like it was possible that Rogue One was going to overtake The Rise of Skywalker, and The Rise of Skywalker was not going to earn more money than Rogue One because of its poor opening weekend performance. But after this huge Monday, it does look like it will probably overtake The Last Jedi in the US domestic box office. Now, that might be short-lived because The Last Jedi had Christmas the week after this. So it earned an abnormal amount of money over that period. So if The Rise of Skywalker does overtake The Last Jedi, and it might not, but if it does, it may in turn be taken back over again by The Last Jedi during next week's box office numbers. Here I've got the raw figures I used for the chart. We've got The Force Awakens on the left, we have The Last Jedi second, we have The Rise of Skywalker third, and Rogue One on the fourth position there. If you look at the grey shaded column there for The Rise of Skywalker, we've got $40 million for Thursday, $49 for Friday, $47 for Saturday, $40 for Sunday, and the $29.2 million just announced for Monday. So the 3 figures I have after that, they're all 100% made up. So if you look at the percentage next to the $29.2 million, the Monday reduction percentage, The Rise of Skywalker just got a 29.5% reduction. But if you look to the left to The Last Jedi, it got a 58% reduction. And if you look to the right to Rogue One, it got a 53% reduction. And so it's not really tracking like either of those 2 films anymore. If you look at the Force Awakens, it got 33% reduction. So it's a bit more similar to The Force Awakens than the other 2 films. So I've just grabbed the 6.9% reduction for the next day, for the Tuesday. And then I've put a 20% increase for Christmas Day. That's probably playing it extremely safe. It's going to go up, but is it going to be 50% up? Is it going to be more than 50% up? I just don't really know. It's very hard to know what would happen on a Christmas Day, and they fall on different days of the year. There's not really a lot of big films to look at other than the other 3 films here as to what does go on, and you get a big increase basically. And then the day after Christmas Day, that will probably outperform what Tuesday does this week, but I've just put the same reduction down that The Force Awakens had for that day, but I do believe that's under it as well. So I think I've been very safe here with what the figures are. I think it'll be higher than this, but I don't want to just be making up crazy numbers that are perhaps unbelievable, like a 100% increase on Christmas Day. If you look at the number in the bottom right corner for each of the films, that's the total at the end of the week. So it was $390 million for The Force Awakens, it was $296 million for The Last Jedi, and using these figures here, which I think are lower than they will be, we get $289 million for The Rise of Skywalker. So I think it's very likely that it could be over this $296 million that The Last Jedi actually got. And in the last film here, Rogue One, 221, I think The Rise of Skywalker will clearly be above that at the end of the week. It didn't look like that yesterday, but I assumed that it would get something like a 58% reduction on the Monday, like The Last Jedi got, whereas here it's only had a 27.5% reduction. So absolutely massive difference in the box office. The opening weekend was very disappointing, about 20% under what The Last Jedi got, but a big 30% increase in what they've both earned on their Mondays. When we take a look at the international figures, we haven't had an update for 24 hours, so it's still sitting on $197,430,249, which brings the total to just over $400 million, $404,014,113, and that's after 4 days, but that is without an international update. So the real 4-day total will be higher than that for the worldwide gross, but at the very least, it's crossed the $400 million mark in 4 days. The only country I do have updated box office figures for is China, and it still looks terrible for The Rise of Skywalker over there. On this chart here, we have the Last Jedi's box office in China compared to The Rise of Skywalker. Rise of Skywalker was released a day early. It's currently sitting on less than $15 million at the end of Tuesday, and The Last Jedi was over the $30 million mark at that point in time. The Last Jedi went on to make $40 million in China, which isn't a great amount of money, but The Rise of Skywalker looks like it will struggle to get 15, and it probably won't get $20 million, which is a really low figure. I had a quick look at what other films are out right now that might actually be worse than that, and Charlie's Angels did do worse in China than The Rise of Skywalker will do, but the Terminator film, Terminator Dark Fate, it made about $50 million. So Terminator Dark Fate, as much as that failed in the US domestic market, it got more money than Last Jedi, and it's going to get about 3 times as much money as what The Rise of Skywalker gets in China. That's just crazy. So the Chinese really don't care for Star Wars, and particularly this one here, The Rise of Skywalker, no appetite at all. Maybe $15 million, maybe $20 million. Absolutely terrible result in China. Now the movie has passed the $200 million domestic mark. Let's have a look at the records to see what is the fastest to $200 million. Well, Avengers Endgame did it in 2 days. Infinity War, Star Wars Episode 7, Star Wars Episode 8, Jurassic World, The Avengers, and Black Panther all did it in 3 days. And The Rise of Skywalker has done it in 4. So it is the equal 8th fastest film to $200 million. The way they're ranked here is how much they beat it on the day they go over. So it's going to be around about number 10, number 11, depending on where exactly it lines up there. So perhaps the 10th fastest film in the world to the $200 million mark. This is all without inflation, so it does get a little bit less impressive when we put inflation on. But not fantastic news for a Star Wars film, but pretty good news if it was a normal film. 10th fastest to $200 million. Now, I think Christmas Day, the 6th day for release for The Rise of Skywalker, is where it'll pass the $250 million mark. So let's take a look at the records. What is the fastest to $250 million looking like? So if you go down to day 6, that is the 8th on the list here. The second Lion King on the list, the Lion King just above it, is from 1994. The second one is the one from this year from 2019. So that's very impressive from the Lion King from 1994 because these figures are not adjusted for inflation. So it obviously was the record holder for a very long time back then. And again, very impressive to be number 7th without inflation from all the way back there in 1994. But back to The Rise of Skywalker, it'll be equal 8th. It may very well be 8th. It may get over the $260 million that the Lion King got from this year. But again, judging what exactly it'll get on Christmas Day, it's pretty hard to do. But I do think it will earn a fair bit over what I'm actually using right here for my figures. So the main takeaway here is this Monday is huge for The Rise of Skywalker. I thought there was a chance of it having a box office collapse like Batman v Superman, particularly after the critics have savaged the film. The general audience doesn't seem to care. The general audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is fairly good, but this $29.2 million, there's your audience score. Monday, people liked it, so $29.2 million, huge amount of money. Let's take a look at the biggest Mondays in the US domestic market. At the top, we have Black Panther on $40 million. Now, that was on a holiday. And number 2 there, we have Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, also on $40 million, and that was in the December holiday period. Avengers Endgame, biggest film of all time, second biggest film in the US domestic market, only managed number 3 for its first Monday, $36 million. Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, huge $32 million. Now, I believe that was on, in fact, I'm wrong, I was going to say Christmas Day, it says it right there, December 26th. So that's the kind of extra money you can make on an actual Christmas or the day after Christmas. We then have in number 5, Star Wars Episode 7 again, and that's how the film is the biggest film in the US domestic market. It's not only the second biggest Monday, its next Monday was the 5th biggest Monday of all time with $31 million. We then have number 6 right here, The Rise of Skywalker. So that's just how big that is. Now the film after that is Spider-Man 2 from 2004. If you put inflation on that, that probably moves up a couple of spots, but there's no inflation here. But if you look at number 8, that's The Last Jedi, and that's $27 million. That's not what The Last Jedi got on its first Monday. If you look at that date, that is Christmas Day, December 25th. And so The Last Jedi earned more money on its second Monday than it earned on its first Monday. That's what Christmas Day can do. So that's why I think the estimates I had earlier in the video are probably lower than what we're looking for on Wednesday, and that's why I think that The Rise of Skywalker will overtake The Last Jedi's total box office at the end of the week. But again, because of this $27 million The Last Jedi gets in the week after this, it may in fact move back ahead at that point in time. So as usual, we'll have to wait and see what the actual box office brings. Just how much money will The Rise of Skywalker make? Well, I think it's going to make a lot more now after what I've seen today than what I thought 24 hours ago. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.